Good morning. My name is Matt Jasmine, hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works. Nathan Rodas is I'm sorry, it's not Nathan, it's Maribel Hanson. Sorry about that. Is the clerk for
No
the hearing.
problem.
Public Works Forestry Inspector, Urban Forestry Inspector Allegra Mottner and Susan Narberry will be presenting the orders for today. The hearing is going to be recorded via Zoom and will be available afterwards through a link on the San Francisco Public Works website, sfpublicworks.org. As this is a virtual hearing, there's no sign-in sheet. So if you'd like to receive information about the results of the hearing, please send an email to the email address listed on the hearing notice. This public hearing is being held to consider two items. Hearing order 21-0942 to consider an appeal for the illegal destruction of one significant tree on private property at 66 Cleary Court, and hearing order 21-0943 to consider appeal for the illegal removal of one street tree adjacent to 1868 Greenwich Street. My job as the hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing items, listen to the testimonies, and help the director make determinations. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward my findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to the director. The director will make all final determinations. When the director's determinations are made, the department will notify you. The hearing will proceed as follows for the hearing items. I'll ask Public Works staff to speak first and present each case. Then we'll allow the property owner or appellant to speak, followed by any member of the public or witness who'd like to speak on the item. Finally, the department, if decided, will address any comments. And then ultimately the property owner can speak once more if they have a rebuttal. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes. The clerk will monitor this for us. When you hear the first bell, it means you have 30 seconds left to speak. And if you're a party to any of the cases today, you'll be called on. If you'd like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let us know. If you're a member of the public who would like to speak, wait for us to call on public comments, then use the Zoom raise your hand feature if you're on a computer. And if you're joining us by phone, you'll dial *9. When it's your turn to speak, you may need to dial *6 to unmute yourself. Comments and questions should be addressed to me and not to the department or the applicant. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you may submit written testimony to me by the end of the hearing. If I feel a question is warranted, I'll ask it. After all the comments are completed, I'll close each item. Before we consider the hearing items on today's agenda, would like to open up the hearing for public comment. Members of the public may address the hearing officer on matters that are within the department's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. Are there any public comments at this time? Clerk Hanson, are there any comments?
I see no hands raised, Officer Jasmine.
Thank you. Showing no comments, we'll now begin the hearing, starting with order 21-0942. I'd ask Inspector Mottner to present this order.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And great. So I did also just want to clarify that Susan will not be speaking at today's hearing. It'll just be me today for both cases. So just wanted to set that clarification before I started. So my name is Allegra Mountner. I'm an urban forestry inspector for the City of San Francisco, Department of Public Works, Bureau of Urban Forestry. So today we're going to be I'm going to be presenting about the administrative hearing for September 18th, 2024. So just as a little bit of background before we get into the individual cases, I just want to talk about kind of like what our tree ordinance is and how it exists and what are some of the codes that we're going to be covering today. So the tree ordinance in San Francisco establishes authorization and standards for addressing a wide range of issues regarding trees. San Francisco's urban forestry ordinance is codified under Article 16 of the Public Works Code. And I'll kind of do a broad overview. You can read the code directly if you're interested in getting into the nitty-gritty of all of the details. So today we're looking at the protection of trees and landscape material. Specifically, the injury to or destruction of trees is prohibited. So in addition to the penalties set forth, any person who removes or destroys a tree in violation of the provisions of Article 16 are to pay for each tree removed or destroyed, specifically a sum of $10,000 or the tree's replacement value, whichever is greater. So in both these cases, and we'll get into a little bit more, the $10,000 was greater than the tree's replacement value. More specifically about the illegal removal, if where an abutting property owner removed a street tree or trees without obtaining a permit, there is a calculation in terms of replacement trees that are equal to that, the value of that tree. Specifically the diameter of the tree at 6 inches above grade. So we have the code Article 16, which outlines the illegal or the removal and planting of trees. Specifically, we do have to grant removal permits in order to ensure that the tree is replaced properly and that the tree is indeed valid to be removed. And we inspect for that. So this is somewhat related in that both of these cases involved construction, which may have injured or removed the trees. So specifically, we're looking at failure to protect, and I'll talk a little bit more about why we didn't consider both of these cases to be failure to protect. But in general, if excavation, construction, or street work is planned within the drip line of a significant tree, a landmark tree, or a tree on any street or any publicly owned property, said tree shall be adequately protected. If any construction work results in the injury or damage to such trees, the responsible parties may be subject to the penalties. So we do also have code which impacts the pruning of the trees. That wasn't involved in this case, so we won't go into too much detail on that. So again, we talk a bit about the $10,000 or the tree's replacement value. And then when one or more additional violations of the provisions of Article 16 occur, within 1 year of the first violation, the director may assess a responsible party $20,000 for each removed or destroyed tree, and double the diminishment of the injured tree's value. So in summary, just wanted to go over that, trees are more than just beautiful additions to the urban life. They are an essential component of the city's ecosystem and do provide enormous environmental and social benefits to our city. A permit is required to remove any street tree, significant tree, or landmark tree, and it is illegal to injure a tree. Injuries can include excessive pruning and malicious acts like nailing objects to trees and negligent acts like vehicular accidents. An illegal removal of trees requires replacement with equivalent inches in total diameter of the street tree or trees that were removed, and it is the property owner's responsibility to know the law. Ignorance is not an excuse. So best management practices. Again, we talked, I talked a little bit about the fact that we do have kind of illegal pruning laws as well. In both these cases, we're just looking at removal, so we won't go into too much detail, but we don't allow for the illegal pruning of trees either. And here's some examples of illegal pruning that are disallowed through our city code. So a little bit more about our program as a whole. Street Tree SF is our program in San Francisco, which manages street trees in the public right-of-way. In a 2016 ballot measure that was passed, it transferred the responsibility for maintaining street trees and repairing tree-related sidewalk damage from property owners to the city. So the passing of this measure created Street Tree SF, which is a citywide street tree maintenance program, which is managed by by San Francisco Public Works, the department I work for. And a $19 million annual set aside in the city's general fund is used to fund that on an annual basis. So this is, so that was the urban forest map. In preparation for Street Tree SF, a tree census was completed that inventoried and assessed the condition of approximately 125,000 street trees. This census data is being used to populate a routine proactive tree pruning schedule for the city's nearly 125,000 street trees. So you can see here that we have high priority trees in red and lower priority trees in the green. This data has allowed us to prioritize areas of the city that where the need for the tree maintenance is the highest, allowing us to allocate resources to those areas first. And it is important to note that safety is our number one criteria for prioritizing trees and areas for maintenance. So our goal is to ensure everyone's safety in the public right-of-way while maintaining a robust urban forest. Once the Street Tree SF ramp up is complete and all street trees in San Francisco have been serviced, a schedule will be established where trees will be pruned on a 5 to 7 year pruning cycle based on the species and needs of individual trees. You can see here that we already completed a fair amount of the work that we were to prune, and we took care of all the highest priority trees. So we're in the 2024 to 2025 cycle now. So we've completed even more than what's here on our map, and continue to complete more every day. So Street Tree SF work, since the start of the program, 68% of total tree maintenance needs have been addressed by contractors and city arborists. And I think that percentage is even higher now. It's like 71%. More than 85,000 trees have been pruned. Yeah, because this data was as of December 2023. So before tree crews begin maintenance work in an area, residents do receive door hangers informing them of the work and time frame, the work that will happen. And when tree crews are out in the field doing Street Tree SF work, signage and the program logo are displayed. And other outreach includes informational brochures explaining the Street Tree SF program. We have some, all outreach material is in English, Chinese, and Spanish, and has contact information to reach Public Works with any questions or concerns. All this is to say that the removal and pruning of street trees should be left to us unless in the case of extenuating circumstances where you should contact our department if something else is occurring. So now we'll get into the individual cases. The first case that we're going to be considering today is to consider an appeal for the illegal destruction of one significant tree on private property at 66 Cleary Court. The fine issued is $10,000. So again, I had mentioned at the beginning that that Article 16 code indicates that if a tree is illegally removed or destroyed, because in this case, a removal permit was submitted, but actions that were taken did necessitate the immediate removal of the tree. So we considered it destruction of the tree rather than an illegal removal. So here's the tree at 66 Cleary Court. It's considered a significant tree rather than a street tree because it does exist on private property. So as you can see here, the public right-of-way is 11.25 feet, which takes us just about to the edge of this horizontal area. As it starts to go down, this is where it becomes the private property, and a significant tree exists within the first 10 feet of the public right-of-way. A significant tree has to be at least 15 feet or 20 feet in height, or have a 15-foot canopy spread, or have a diameter at breast height of 12 inches. Obviously, this tree far exceeds all of those minimum requirements and is within that first 10 feet of the private property from the public right-of-way. You can note here the just absolute vigor of this tree. When I arrived on site to inspect the tree, I was struck by how incredibly impressive this tree was. This species does not tend to do well. We currently have a lot of endemic diseases and pests that impact this species, including rusts and beetles. And I noted none of that on this tree, which is incredibly rare for San Francisco. Even if a tree is in fair health, you typically see at least one of those pests. So you can see that the canopy is very thick and verdant, and that it actually has very good structure for this species. It has a single strong stem with lateral limbs that aren't too large. And although the tree does have a slight lean over the roadway, it is what we call a corrected lean, which means that the tree is correcting not only in the canopy but below ground in the roots along and around in this area, and that will become important in coming slides. So I just wanted to really make note that this is truly one of the most impressive specimens of this species that I have seen in San Francisco. So it is a true loss to our canopy. So I want to note before we talk about kind of what occurred, the requirements for replacement of this tree. So in addition, so this is straight from the city code. In addition, where an abutting property owner removed a street tree or trees without obtaining a permit, the department shall require that the property owner plant a replacement street tree or trees with total diameter 6 inches above ground that is equal to or greater than the total diameter of the street tree or trees that were removed without a permit. And we consider this to be a forced removal due to the destruction of the tree, and that's why we're considering it to have the same replacement requirement. So I did measure the diameter of the tree at breast height. This stump I will measure today when I am out in the field. I have some inspections that I'm doing today if the stump is still there. Otherwise, the diameter at breast height will stand as the calculation. So typical 24-inch box tree is 2 inches caliper at 6 inches above ground. So with a DBH of 29 divided by that 2, we end up with minimum estimated replacement of 15 24-inch box trees to stand as the replacement of this destroyed tree. And on the right there, you see the assessment that I made when I was on site in June of 2024. So this is the act that required the emergency posting and removal. This photo was sent to me from the applicant, the arborist that was hired for the applicant, and this is what encouraged me to go out and post the tree for emergency removal. We had received a removal permit for the tree, which I had not yet inspected. But when I received this photo from the applicant, I made an emergency inspection to go and inspect the tree and post for emergency removal. We're going to zoom in a little bit here. So as you can see, we have 2 major roots that were cut. And just to note that the arborist sent this to me because he felt that, or he made it clear to me in the communication that the roots that were cut necessitated emergency inspection because the stability of the tree had been compromised. And I completely agree. In this case, we can see that this root, which looks like it could have been a single root, or it may be several roots that were kind of bundled together and splitting at this point. Either way, it appears to be approximately 10 to 12 inches in diameter, and this one appears to be approximately 4 to 6 inches in diameter. I was not able to go on site, because this would be behind a fence, to measure the exact diameter of the root. But typically, in terms of root protection for a tree, based on the the ANSI standards for root management, for trees, we don't want to see any roots that are at minimum of 2 inches in diameter cut within 1.5 times the diameter of the tree. This is essentially at the base of the tree, maybe 6 inches from the trunk of the tree. So that's well within the 1.5 times the diameter, as this tree had a 29-inch diameter. So that would put us at approximately, what is that, like 40 to 45 inches from the tree. So this is well within that that critical stability zone. So any roots that are cut that are at least 2 inches of diameter in that area can have the potential to significantly impact the stability of the tree and increase the likelihood of failure to probable. So this is kind of just like a top view. This is the picture that I took while I was on site, just so you can see how close it is to the trunk of the tree. So those cuts that were made, this is the smaller root, and then this was the larger root that was cut. And you can see it's right on the edge of this fence line here. And if we go to the next, this is where that fence line exists. So you can see it's really only maybe 4 to 6 inches from the base of the tree, from the trunk of the tree, that these roots were cut. So well within that 1.5 times the diameter of the tree. So that takes us to the end of this first case. And to be consistent with previous cases that have been heard in illegal removal and destruction cases, that's why I made the choice to issue this citation and the fine of $10,000 for this case.
Thank you for that. Now I'll ask the owner or appellant for comment.
Ms. Korotkin?
Yes.
Yes, you're welcome to speak. You have 3 minutes. At 30 seconds, I will remind you would have 30 seconds left.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Start. All right.
Yes.
I'm a state licensed landscape contractor, not a certified arborist. Although I have studied arboriculture and spent over 40 years observing trees in my work. Servicing Cleary for over 20 years, I'm quite familiar with its landscape and trees. On August 2023, a leak was discovered under a pinus trunk on private property. After not being able to perform discovery, I consulted with 2 arborists and had meetings with Cityscape Property Management and the owner, and it was concluded that removal was the only option to repairing the irrigation main line and restoring water to the rest of the landscape. Arborist Nell's letter describes the irrigation issue with respect to the tree. Conclusion: the pine tree at the east border is adversely affected by the leaking pipe beneath its root ball. To address the leak, it is recommended to remove the tree and root ball promptly. So they were hired to file the application and did so in February of this year, but they mischaracterized the situation. As a consequence, DPW was not made aware of the urgency and took 4 months to respond, putting the landscape again in the warm, dry season with no irrigation. Bartlett had a similar, the other arborists had a similar conclusion. If large buttress roots need to be cut close to the trunk to repair irrigation, we both believe this may require the removal of the tree. The tree was not destroyed prior to removal. It still was viable. Up until removal, there was no instability observed. The roots were tenaciously in the ground. The area has a massive network of large tree roots growing for over 70 years, consisting of its own root systems and the neighboring systems, and all intertwined. The pine needles did not demonstrate any stress. The tree went solidly through the winter storms without budging. I have some photos, if you will, that show where the leak was coming from. Will they be shown? Hello?
Yeah, I can go to that slide. I think it's at the end here. I don't have the video that you
That's the
shared.
pipe that we recently replaced the copper. Okay, good. Okay.
This was the only one that I was
Oh,
yesterday, so.
Cassie,
Oh, you know what? I do have, let me pull up. I do have one sec. Let me just. You can their time or please continue to present. I'll bring up the photo.
well, I have a photo that shows the leak coming from underneath the tree trunk. The leaning habit of the trees is very common in that section. And the photo showing the massive network of tree roots on the surface as well as down below. And a photo that shows one end of a leaking pipe, but we could not access the other end because it was under the tree trunk. So we could not make the repair. There was no alternative. It was recently repaired from the sidewalk. There's the leak from where the underneath the tree root. Yes, thank you. And if you can proceed, we can maybe see some of the other ones.
So then the other.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and mute you now.
Me? Or. Sorry. Oops. Are you talking to me?
No, sorry.
Okay.
To Ms. Korotkin.
Okay. And then I also have, I can share, let me just put this down. I can share this one as well. This is the leak that was on the tennis court as well. And then I think that's all the ones that I received. And the first one that I showed.
Yeah, there were several others. that I had sent over.
The video was not working.
Okay.
And then yeah, the video, it's for whatever reason it's not working on my, and it was shared yesterday, so I didn't have any time to kind of troubleshoot the technical issues.
Okay, I had sent several to and sent a package as well.
Yeah, so the package that I have, oh, I see. That's yeah, I did get the package. And there's the email chain. And ah, yes, okay. I do have that one as well. You're right. Thank you. Sorry, our normal clerk is out, so she did not have a chance to. Appeal letter. Give me just a second. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
Inspector Modner, I did receive the package along with a series of photographs that I was able to download. There
Yes,
was a
and
video also.
I can share the I can share it now. I just pulled it up, so sorry for the slow. This is it. So this is the original. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the original. Oh, let me zoom out a little bit so that it's not. So this is the original appeal letter. And then this is the Bartlett email, which shows that if large buttress roots need to be cut close to the trunk to repair irrigation, we believe this may require the removal of the tree. Obviously, I showed that the large buttress roots had been cut. this application for the tree. And then you'll note that the payment was not received until August 4th, 2024. So that's actually when um, the the application was valid. It was not valid until that point. I did in those cases of emergency, or sorry, am I allowed to kind of like
I
respond
think
or
we should go through the other
all of it first?
either public comments or appellant comments
Got it.
first,
Okay.
and then
So
come
these are
back
all the
to rebuttal.
yeah, so this is all the appellant comments. Still, this is part of their presentation, so I'm just going to scroll through it so that we can see it. Is that fine? I just won't make any comments.
That's fine. I actually haven't seen the entire package, including the appeal letter. So having the appeal letter and then also the application would be helpful for me.
Okay, so you want me to go back up to the appeal letter?
If you can just send it to me, that
Oh,
would
I'll
be
just send
great.
it to you. Okay,
Yeah.
and then these are the photos, the leak from the trunk. Right. Oh, and you can, I guess this is the cut roots before they were cut.
Yeah, and I can review all those
At a separate time. They don't need to be
separate time,
reviewed right
and
now.
we can get back to maybe
Got it.
the
Great.
other appellant comments or
Great. Okay, I will
or
stop share then.
public comment. And I think we should move on to the next commenter.
Please.
There is a hand raised by Mr. Sergey Gorotsky. Are you still accepting public comments, Officer
Yes, please.
Jasmine? Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Sir, you have 3 minutes, and at the 30 second mark, we'll let you know when that's going to be close to. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. Oh, I don't think I can even get video on. Thank you everybody for your time. I am the property manager at 66 Cleary. Sharon, who was just presenting, she is our landscaper, as she had mentioned. I just wanted to make a few, well, really, all I really wanted to say, this project started before I even became the property manager. The whole reason this tree was removed is the root system had damaged the irrigation to the point where we had a significant leak, and the pictures that were shown don't do justice. We had a swimming pool, an impromptu swimming pool in our basketball court. That's how bad it was. And we were put in a position where we tried to, shutting down the irrigation. We tried rerouting the irrigation, right? Every time we shut it down, the landscaping would suffer and would start to die. And it really got to the point where we were trying to figure out where the irrigation lied underneath all these roots. And that's how I believe we accidentally damaged this tree. I really want to stress this. We had zero intention of removing this tree. When I first got involved, and this would have been November, December of last year, this is how long this has been going on. Sharon said we need to remove this tree. And my first reaction was absolutely not. Let's go find another arborist. This is a 30-year-old tree. To Allegra's point, that it's in really good shape. We treat all of our trees. We have a dozen of the exact same trees all over our property. We do beetle treatment twice a year. We really care about these trees. Nobody in our community, not my board of directors, none of the homeowners, not I, not Sharon, nobody wanted to remove this tree. It just kind of happened this way that we just could not get to this irrigation system without getting into those trees, because again, the tree's been growing on top of it for 30 years. So in the end, when we really ran out of options, we put in the application to remove the tree, and that's how we found out that we had damaged the roots to the point where the tree had to be removed as an emergency. That was never our intent. I really want to stress that. If we could keep that tree, we would. If we can plant a tree that's 30 years old, we would, right? But we all know that's not possible. So really what I want to stress is, I know ignorance of the law is not adjudication here, but I would just really like to plead with everyone, with all the decision makers, that this was not the course of action that we wanted, and we really were forced because of the massive amount of water that was being wasted.
Thank you. You have 30 seconds.
And the damage that was being caused to the rest of our landscaping because our irrigation wasn't working properly, which we have fixed now. And we've actually planted 3 or 4 trees. Sharon can correct me. 3 or 4 trees already to replace that big one in various parts of our community. So we understand the landscaping for the entire community and how it appears for the city and everything in between. And again, I think we're just asking for some mercy. When we saw a $10,000 bill, we went, oh my goodness. That is all I can add, but I'm happy to answer any questions now or in the future.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Clerk Hansen?
I see no other hands.
Inspector Mountainer, do you have any rebuttal?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple of comments before moving on. So I will share my screen again just so that it's clear. Actually, this is one. Okay. So I think there was a point made in one of the comments that that these roots were not stabilizing roots. And if you kind of think about how a tree is going to be stabilizing itself, one thing to know, and again, I think the commenter made the statement that they are not a certified arborist, and so they don't have that training. But within, like I said, our ANSI standards, one of the really specific things, which is the American National Standards Institute, specifically for root management, that no roots be cut within 1.5 times the diameter of the tree. And again, these include major roots, which exist, which are at least 2 inches in diameter. And again, these roots are at least 4, if not 12 inches in diameter here. So if we think about which direction this tree is leaning in, if we look back at that original photo, we can see that the lean is over the road here, which is a public safety issue. We have obviously nearly constant occupancy of people and cars in this area. This is a very common place for people to be walking. While I was there, I saw several elderly folks doing their rounds and their exercises, doing laps along this area while I was there. So it certainly is a high target zone. And if we look at the lean of the tree, then this tree may have, I don't know exactly when the roots were cut, but I was contacted, I believe, shortly after the roots were cut. And that's when the arborist encouraged me to inspect at a more rapid pace. And so that's when I went out immediately to go inspect the tree and determined that this had destabilized to the tree to such a point that it was really a high risk for failure. So even if it did last through a storm season, that does not indicate the future probability of failure. So if we think about kind of like the mechanics of it, we can kind of think of this location as kind of like a hinge. And so if we cut all of those stabilizing roots on the backside, on the tension side of what we call the tension side of the lean, then that greatly destabilizes and removes the ability of the tree to stabilize itself when a strong wind does come in this direction.
Understood. I have a few clarifying questions I'd like to ask before we move on to the next item. We are running pretty long here. First of all, is the tree, as I understand, the roots were damaged and now the tree has also been removed?
So the roots were damaged. So normally I would go and inspect the tree and I would determine if there were other ways to deal. We may have ultimately approved this tree for removal, but I was not able to make a full assessment of the tree because this action had been made, which made the removal an emergency necessity. Not only that, but it completely removed the ability of the public to protest the removal of this tree. And so
And who removed the tree?
That would be the applicant. So I did approve emergency removal of the tree because of the state of the tree. And like I said, it's an emergency posting. None of the public was able to comment. And we had complaints that day when the tree was being removed from people in the public saying that they had not been notified, that they were in protest of this, and they were not able to be heard in a public setting. So, you know,
Understood.
that's really what we're looking at here, is just the lack of public trust in our ability to go through the normal process.
Understood. So there's the $10,000 fine, but the 15 24-inch box trees as a replacement is not part of the option. It's just the fine. Is that true?
So,
Or is it
so no,
also
it
the
is.
10,000?
So that's in addition. So once a tree is illegally destroyed or removed, because that's part of this section is destruction or removal, then not only are they required to pay the fine, and they did already pay the removal permit fee, they are required to replace the tree in kind through this process of 15 24-inch box trees.
And those replacement trees would go in the same general location, or would they
They
be
could be
elsewhere planted?
significant trees on anywhere on the property. So anywhere along the frontage, these trees can be planted. And for every tree that is not able to be planted, an in lieu fee of $2,520 would be assessed. But that's not considered part of the citation fine. That is the amelioration, the replacement requirement.
Okay, so how is that enforced?
In what do you mean by that? I mean, it's just required as a replacement for the a lien can be put on the property if it's not
Okay.
Yeah.
And have you or anyone else from Urban Forestry assessed the replacement trees that were mentioned, 3 to 4?
I did not know about
species
them.
planted?
This was the first I've heard of them.
Okay.
But certainly if they were 24-inch box and they were planted properly and they're species approved through our department, and as long as they're within that 10 feet of the public right of way, so they would still be considered street trees, or sorry, significant trees, then they would count towards that total. Absolutely.
Okay. If there are no other folks in the queue for public comment, we'll move on to the next hearing order.
Well, Sir Jasmine, there is a hand raised by Sharon Kronotkin. If you'd like to allow her to speak one more time, otherwise.
Briefly, we are running significantly over time here, so it would be great if you could make your comments brief.
Yes, thank you. I
Go
just
ahead.
want to say that, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to say that that initial removal of those roots was unavoidable if we were going to figure out what to do with the irrigation system. There were I understand completely what you're saying, Allegra, and I agree with you that they were major systems, but there also were other roots around stabilizing that tree in front and from itself and other trees as well. What would DPW have done? What alternate would you have concluded? Because to leave the irrigation system off continually for months and months, would that have been a good situation for the rest of the landscape? We wanted to save the tree. We did everything we could and couldn't think of anything more. So we filed for that. We did what we could do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your comments. I will make note of them and consult with the inspector as needed. But now let's move on to hearing order 210943.
Great. So our second case today is 1868 Greenwich Street, order 210943. This is to consider an appeal for the illegal removal of one street tree adjacent to 1868 Greenwich Street. The fine issued is $10,000. So this is the tree as it existed prior to removal. This was a tree, so this is a street tree, so we do have it in our database listed as tree ID 109327. It's a Prunus udinosus. which is a Yoshino cherry. In this photo, which was provided by the applicant or the appellant, which was taken several years prior to the illegal removal. The tree, I believe this was in 2016 is when this photo was taken, but I'm not exactly sure. And you can see in the photo, this is the tree. This was presented as evidence that the tree was dead at the time of removal. However, as you can clearly see, there are several flowers existing within the canopy of the tree. This was taken in April, which is why the appellant decided that the tree was dead. And this is very common for this species, as I'm sure you guys have all seen the cherries throughout San Francisco tend to flower from anywhere from from March through the end of April, and then they don't put their leaves on until May or even June in most years. So this is very typical for this species. This one is obviously vigorous as it has several flowers throughout the canopy, and just based on the photo provided, this would not be considered a dead tree. So here's several other pictures that I was able to find through Google Street View. These ones were more were closer to the supposed removal time. I do not know the exact time of removal, as the tree was simply gone and replaced by the time that I was able to inspect the site. So this photo was from June of 2022. There are no photos from Google Street View which show the exact front, because this street was surveyed last in 2019. Sorry, not in 2019, in 2014, which was before the tree was even planted. The tree was planted by a permit through our department in 2015 as a requirement of an earlier construction project. So here it is again. This is from a different angle, that same June 2022. You can see that there's obviously a very thick, full canopy of green leaves, and the tree was thriving as recently as June 2022. This is another view. This one is from April of 2022, when we would expect the canopy to just be starting to leaf out. You can still see some of the flowers remaining versus the previous one. This is when the tree is fully leafed out. And you can see that, you know, even in April of 2022, which was after that initial photo that was given by the appellant that the tree was dead, that the tree is thriving and green. This is from Bing Street View. I can't remember the exact name of the application. So again, we did a calculation. In this case, because the tree is much smaller, the replacement value is only one tree, and they have already replaced with an appropriate species that we have inspected and approved as a valid replacement for the tree if the owner chooses to use that as the replacement. So here we can see this, and this is what we expect if there's going to be any construction or activity around the tree in terms of trenching, construction activities, any sort of something that may impact the tree through cutting roots. We expect every project within the city of San Francisco that is doing any work within the impact zone of the tree, they are required to submit a tree protection plan, which shows how they plan to protect the tree and make sure that the tree is not injured or destroyed. This project did, in fact, put in a tree protection plan for this tree. It was paid on November 23rd, 2020. That's the $151. This is a removal permit that was created at the same time for a significant tree on property. So the applicant did know about the removal process, but chose not to do it for this tree. And this was the replacement value for that avocado tree that was ultimately removed. So this is the invoice for the tree protection plan. for the application, and along with the invoice that was paid, they were required to submit a tree protection plan, which was submitted as part of their building application. This was created by the applicant themselves. It shows the tree in place with tree protection and how it should be constructed. So the tree was to be protected in this way per their guidelines on their application and through the tree protection plan that they sent through our office. This may or may not be related, but it was something that I found while I was doing my investigation for this project. I found when I was creating the citation for this location, I did find that there was a report of an illegal tree removal in May of 2023. You'll note that the address is for next door. However, the tree that is in front of the adjacent property is still there and still thriving. And so I did sometimes when people put in a 311, they just look at the nearest address. And if you can see in this photo, it's much easier to see this address than it is to see the address for this location. And at the time that the report was made, this was a construction site. So there was no clear address on here. So it may have been that the caller was just looking at that address there when they made the 311 request. So what was reported was that there was a illegal destruction of the tree that was occurring, that there are 4 men with axes that are chopping at the base of the tree, and the rest of this says that the customer has a video. I did contact the caller via email that they left. I have not heard back. So if we do find more information, we'd be happy to share that as that arises. This is the report as it was submitted to through 2311, and they went to go inspect and see if there was any trees in the public right of way and that there was any safety issues associated. So kind of coming back to the application itself, on various documents throughout the building permit process, it was expressly indicated that the existing street tree be protected throughout the construction process. So this is a note that was placed on the plan set as it was approved by our department. Specifically, our inspector wrote, okay to release 1 street tree to be protected during construction and 1 significant tree approved for removal. Again, we also have this section, which is all of the fee requirements that the applicant is notified of through the Department of Building Inspection. One of them specifically said, and this was listed in May of 2021, that 1 street tree was to be protected during construction. And so that's what we would be inspecting on. This line here is one that I added on September 3rd of this year after issuing the citation, just to tie the building permit. So this existed as of the beginning of this month, which is the illegal removal of the existing tree. But this was the main one that was required since the building permit was approved by our department. And that's the end of my presentation for this location.
Were all of these documents part of the presentation you shared earlier today?
Sorry, what do you mean? Do you mean with you that I sent to you?
These documents.
Oh yeah, these are in that one. Mm-hmm.
Okay, the one that you forwarded me this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I
Okay,
can
now
I can
I'd ask the property owner or appellant for comment.
Is it possible for me to share the screen? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
the clerk will try to arrange for sharing your screen.
Okay.
Do you,
So I'll start. The tree was not it didn't exist when we started the construction. We were starting to set up the construction, had a porta potty delivered, and prior to starting the work, the porta potty was criminally set on fire. And I have photos that I've sent Allegra showing on the night of February 14 to the 15, the porta potty that was just next to the tree and next to a car was set on fire and burned a car that was next to it. And my best guess is that it burned the tree, and the tree was gone the next day. So and again, I don't know if I can share. No, I still can't.
Okay, Mr. Lenore, I'm gonna,
Oh, here.
oh, okay.
So here's the, thank you.
Sorry,
Here's
I did share
the
my screen.
photo that was taken on February 15, after the porta potty was set on fire, burned the car, and you can see the tree was not there. And this was prior to us starting construction. So, you know, we certainly did not remove the tree. We would not have, I mean, the plan was to keep the tree and redo it. And instead, this is my understanding of what happened, is that the tree burned prior to us starting construction. And I've got the report of the fire department, but it doesn't indicate anything about, it just states the time of the fire alarm. It was on the 15 at 15 a.m. And clearly that was the incident report, a 311 report that was reported in May following this, clearly was not about this tree, because this tree was already gone. Anyway, we didn't remove this tree, and we feel that this fine is completely unfair. We've replaced the tree. We've put a really nice tree that's much bigger than the one that was there before. We've done a nice landscaping job. And
Mallory was not going to be able to join.
Clerk Hanson, how are we doing on time?
hello.
Yes,
I'm just checking to make sure that we've eclipsed our 3 minutes. It seemed a little bit long there, so I just wanted to check on that with you.
Anyway, just to conclude, we did not remove that tree, and you know,
yes.
It seems like it was an accident, and we're sorry about that, but that's not our doing.
Understood.
So
Thank you
can
for your
Thank you, Ms.
comments. Are there other public comments that we can allow to speak now?
I do not see any other guests or hands up at this time.
Okay, Inspector Mautner, do you have any rebuttal to this hearing comment from the appellant?
Yeah, I'll just make a quick comment. I mean, the main thing is that if there was a tree that was listed as being protected throughout the process, and this sort of activity had occurred, then we would want to hear from any sort of applicant, so that we can make the case to anyone who might, you know, anyone of the public who might be concerned that trees are being removed without a permit, that we had learned of some sort of activity. But the first that we heard about any of this was after we had issued the citation, because the tree was not present at the time of inspection for the final sign off for this project. The other thing to note too is that the appellant has said to me in different times that the tree was dead, and that's why that it was removed, or it was missing before they even started the project. And then it does seem suspect that or not suspect. It's, you know, the applicant did say that when they put the porta potty on site, that the tree wasn't present. When they came back to survey the site, the tree was completely gone, likely because it had fallen over because it was dead, when in fact we saw just less than a year prior that the tree was thriving. So I've gotten just kind of different accounts about what had happened to the tree. And then it wasn't until, you know, after that I learned about this fire. So I've just had several various accounts, and we would like to hear from construction projects that if the tree is missing, a tree that is meant to be protected and listed in various places, including a tree protection permit that is submitted through and approved through our office, that if the tree suddenly goes missing, that they should contact us for that information to be passed along. And there was no contact that was made to us to talk about the missing, the tree going missing during that time.
Thank you for that.
Officer
Uh,
Jasmine,
yes.
we have Mr. Lanoy has raised his hand. If you would like to allow him to speak further or conclude.
Yeah, can you spend at the most 1 minute on your comments?
Mr. Lanoy, go ahead. You have 1 minute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you have
Okay.
1 minute.
Um,
Thank you.
So when I submitted the first photo showing that I thought the tree was dead, there was a mistake, and Allegra pointed that there were flowers. I was just trying to figure out what had happened to the tree, why it wasn't there. And as I said, we didn't remove the tree. We just I tried to figure out what had happened because nobody did remove that tree that we know of. So it was just trying to figure out why the tree wasn't there when we started construction. I didn't think about the fire, but that only came after I was looking and researching things. I forgot that there was that fire.
Mr. Lanoy, you have
at the
10
start of
seconds.
construction. So there was really no intent, and we didn't remove the tree. So I appreciate your listening to my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Understood, thank you. If there are no other comments on this item, we'll close the item. And I'll make my recommendations to the director. Are there any other any other hands up? Clerk Hansen?
No, Officer Jasmine, there are no other hands up and no other requested comments.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments on any of the items on the agenda? And if you've spoken already, you will not be allowed to speak again. This is for those who may have come in late or who have not had a chance to speak. I think it's clear that there are no other comments, Clerk Hansen.
That
Okay.
is correct. There are no other attendees as guests.
With no other public comments, I'll close the hearing. The hearing is now closed.
Thank you, and I will now conclude the recording.